Hello and welcome to the Tech on Toast podcast. My name's Chris Fletcher and this is season 12. Tech on Toast podcast is serving up fresh chats with the sharpest minds in hospitality and tech. If you're looking to level up your ops, streamline your service, or just sprinkle a little tech magic into your business, you've come to the right place. And guess what? Our partners Lightspeed are back this season to look after us. They're the EPOS and payments platform helping over 165,000 businesses. Businesses such as Big Mama, Mildred's, Mallow, and Cubit House. They'll help you scale at, you guessed it, the speed of light. See what I did there? With real-time insights, faster transactions, and slick integrations with people like OpenTable, Xero, Muse, and many more, Lightspeed's unified platform is built to boost your performance and turn your tables quicker than you can say flat white, extra hot. So, if you need fast funding, check out Lightspeed Capital. No hidden fees, no interest charges, just smart support when you need it. If you're curious about all of this, just head over to lightspeed.co.uk/tech on toast and book yourself a free demo. You won't regret it. Now, enough of that. Ready for the next episode? Let's go. Welcome to the next episode of Tech on Toast podcast. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Gemma Glasson because she told me to call her the Queen of Tacos.
Happily self-appointed.
You have another title though, don't you? You're managing director at Wahaca.
I am indeed.
And how are you?
So. I'm well. I'm high energy today.
Yeah, have you been in meetings all day? Have you been stuck inside or have you been meeting outside?
I have been inside. However, breaking news today.
That's why we do the podcast. I love it.
1st of April.
Oh, yes.
Wahaca has launched our inaugural fragrance. Compost number 5.
It's April 1st, but it's after midday, so you can't lie to me now. Gemma, stop it.
Okay.
It's literally 2 minutes in. I can't handle it.
I can't use my seductive voice on this podcast.
You can keep doing that, and we'll probably have more listeners than we normally have.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome. You can just come out. In fact, if you do the intro every week, I could double my listeners.
Okay, I'm available.
And listen, and because I know you're Australian, I brought you a little present.
Thank you.
I went and flew all the way to Melbourne to pick that up. So yeah, Tim Tam, yeah. I don't even know what they are. I had an Australian chap who was with me. What are they? They're like biscuit.
Okay, if I'm going to put it into your terms, they're like a penguin, but a really good one.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. Something you can dip in a tea.
Does it hold its weight?
It holds its weight.
Very cool.
You can kind of, just get it through the biscuit. Right. You've got good crunch. You've got a lovely layer of just silky milk chocolate.
Have you ever thought about working for Marks and Spencer's? You know those adverts when they go, oh, a light, crunchy centre, and they have all the... No?
Look, I'm amenable to many things food related, particularly when it comes to
voiceovers. If they're paid well, I'll be there.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. Well, look, before the DJ kicks in outside, welcome to Brewdog. You've been here before, right? You must have.
I have.
Yeah, I think you said you went curling, no?
We went curling on the South Bank, which was fun for the first curl.
Right.
And then I realised it was a fairly repetitive exercise.
Yeah, it's weird, but bowling is the same, but bowling seems more fun.
So we went to Clay's 2 weeks ago.
Right. The shooting guys.
Loved it.
Yeah, very cool.
Loved it. I was all about Clay's. I felt like
That's something about you, they prefer
I was
shooting.
bringing my Angelina Jolie kind of real hard-ass woman and just taking things down.
Were you flipping the gun like in a fashion that you know what you're doing? Yes.
Under both arms.
Yeah. This could be a long one. Anyone who normally listens, this could be, normally they're like 20 minutes, but this one could go a while. And before we get into it, what we normally like to do is work out who you are behind the lady behind the tacos.
Indeed.
It's really bad. Do they call you the Queen of Tacos internally? Or have you just
I'm sure they call me many things internally.
What you hear.
Tacos could be one.
That's when they're feeling good about you.
When they're feeling kind.
And so tell us about you, because how long have you been at Wahaca?
7 years.
Oh my God, that seems longer than I thought.
I know. Everyone's always shocked by that. But I've done a few things along the way.
Well, you didn't start as MD in Wahaca.
I did not.
Okay.
No. So don't tell anybody. It's just you and I in here, isn't it?
Yeah, there's no one listening.
Okay.
Apart from my mum, she's an avid listener.
Oh, hello.
Yes,
hello,
Sue.
Mrs. Mum. Hi, Sue. I was an accountant in a former life.
Wow.
So I worked for Ernst & Young and KPMG and worked on restaurant and consumer deals, basically. And I worked with GBK as part of a sale process that they went through now 7-8 years ago.
Yes.
And I've always been an avid consumer of hospitality, but never worked in the sector except in this sort of financial kind of angle, and just absolutely loved it. I spent 4 months in GBK, loved the team, loved the restaurants, loved the whole experience.
Was it what you expected? Because when you're working on the other side of it and you're seeing, once you got inside it, do you think, oh my God, actually, this is quite cool?
It's
or this is chaos?
No, it is chaos.
Yeah, it is chaos.
And going from a very structured environment, you work in a team and you know who your boss is and you know who works around you and you know your timelines. And then I remember joining Wahaca and just being like, oh my gosh, I set out to achieve this today. I'm now doing something completely different. And actually no one's written anything down. It's just sort of folklore around how things happen around here.
Yes.
And there's lots of relationships that I'm actually formalized into things. So there's a sense of me bringing probably some of my structure in, but then also just kind of.
Are you bringing order to our chaos? How dare you?
I'm attempting to in moments, very loose order, and then within it can be chaotic, and that's actually just really fun and dynamic. So started in the business in more of a commercial role, and then sort of after about 6 months, they said to me, "How would you feel about head of food?" And I said, I'm very good at consuming, not so good at. I'm not a chef, and they were like, "That's fine. We have Thomasina Myers, amazing chef.
Good.
She's quite good. She's super innovative. We need someone who can project manage, keep the timelines, and communicate really effectively." So I took that on and absolutely loved it, and was sort of getting closer and closer then into sort of the heart of the operation. And then came across. I went on maternity leave then, and then came back as COO, and then went on maternity leave again, and came back as MD.
Hang on.
3 years ago. If I get pregnant, I get promoted. But my husband tells me 2 is enough. 1 on each arm.
Yeah. I have 3. Nothing's built for 3.
Yeah, it's tricky.
It's a really bad idea.
Okay.
I mean, I love him dearly, don't get me wrong. But the planes, trains, cars, you name it, hotels, everything's expensive. Anyway, it's not about me, it's about you.
Fine.
And then when you came back, you came back the second time.
Yes.
As MD.
Yes.
And how has Wahaca changed in your 7 years of being there?
I mean, it is such a wild ride, as we know, in this industry. And I feel like the
fact you're here after 7 years is also quite impressive these days.
Well, coming from a very structured corporate background, I really lent into the destruction, chaos, madness, and all the rest. And, I think COVID was wild. And then everything that came after that, sort of these defining moments from a COO perspective. I came back on the 14th of February, 2020. And they said to me, after having my first child, right, you're going to be sort of tasked with getting your hands around COVID and communicating that to the business. And I was like, oh yeah, no problem. That's sort of happening.
Send an email
in Italy, and and then obviously it was the most defining moment probably for the entire country for hopefully a very, very long time.
Yeah.
So that was wild. And I think, obviously we're on a tech podcast and just thinking about the way that we were very quickly needing to adapt to different circumstances and how tech affected that change.
I wonder if your background actually supported that change though in that instance, because a lot of us who'd grown up in the business probably would react in a more emotional, and without not saying you're unemotional, but react in a more a way that we'd normally run hospitality previously. I wonder if you have that structure you have enabled you to kind of look at that problem in a different way.
I'm not sure. I think actually from a personality perspective, I don't love risk without knowing facts. So if you've done the DISC model at all, I go between blue, which is kind of very structured and like to know everything, and yellow, which is sunshine yellow. So at that time, you didn't have a lot of time to think. You didn't have a lot of time to weigh up your options, and you had things put in front of you. You just sort of had to go with them and then make the best of them. So I think there was a sense of we have to give other things a go because this is actually on the basis of business survival.
Well, you couldn't open, right, legally without doing some of that stuff.
Exactly. So I mean, that was obviously huge for the industry. And then Brexit happened, and then we came off the back of that. And I remember sort of 4 or 5 years ago, we're in Hijingo Bingo. We launched Workplace for the first time, and we were kind of looking at retention in our business and trying to drive this sense of culture and pride. And that's something really important to Wahaca. We measure it like we would in our engagement score. How proud are you of the business and our sourcing, food, sustainability, etc. And I think, at the time that was using tech to come together in a way that we couldn't have that face to face a lot of the time.
And probably wouldn't have gone there, right? That soon anyway, regardless of if not for the pandemic.
Yeah, and I think, in terms of how you shop for tech, a lot of it just comes down to business priorities. Sometimes they just pop to the surface, whether you kind of expected them to or not.
Weirdly, we did a survey recently, and 96% of people, we asked senior people, I didn't ask you, so I'm sorry. 96% of people said they wouldn't plan to buy tech. It was based on as and when, which I found, surprising. Obviously, I would say that because I want to push tech forward. But
do you see that now as you look at the business as you move forward? Do you see that as sitting alongside your growth when you look at what you're going to do in the future? Is there a risk not planning tech around that as a learning from the pandemic?
Yeah, I think we haven't been front looking enough, even when it comes to our tech stack.
Yeah.
We have been buying products. We have our two core products. So we've got Forth, and then we have Toast. We bought Toast in last year from a POS system. And then sort of sitting around that are almost like what I would call the satellites. But, there are definitely integrations that we would love to have in place. But we're much more, I think, proactive with our tech partners around, right, what's in your pipeline, because this is where we want to be heading.
Yeah.
And we spend a lot on tech.
Yeah.
If you think about the investment we're making, we probably, for some of the products that we have, used 20% of what the potential product is. And there's a certain point where you get a bit lazy about things. They sort of sit in the business and they do the job, so you just kind of,
it's like the old SOP manuals, right? You build them, spend a lot of time on them, everyone applies brand design, beautiful things are built back in the day, then they sit on the shelf, and some people read them, some people don't.
And I think things evolve when you get something here and you do something there. So I think there's a piece around, absolutely, I want to be thinking about where do we want to be in 3 years, and investing in that direction and making choices which might say, no, that's not going to work, or it could, but only if you can sort of sit here in our tech stack rather than out here, rather than just creating this like very cobbled, slightly archaic beast.
I think you end up there, right? It's almost like that. It's like when I suppose if you've got an old car and you keep fixing it, you've got an orange bonnet, black doors,
100%.
and I think it's quite easy to walk in. I mean, I know it is because I'm talking to a lot of operators who are in this stage, but I think it's quite easy to walk down the slope. I think the harder bit is then pausing and saying, right, where do we go from here? And you start with the heartbeat, the pause, and you kind of look at it and go, how do we build back out? But I think it's a necessary, not evil, but I think it's definitely something that can't be ignored now, right, in terms of that whole ecosystem.
100%. And Wahaca actually turns 18 this year. So there's 18 years.
The same age as my son.
Crazy of just sort of latent tech,
Of course.
that we need to be thinking about, right? How do we bring that into a space where it's really sort of working for us? And I think where I sort of come up against partners that we have is, oh, that's not in your package for me to be able to help you actually utilize your system. Oh, I can't come and do a training because I'm based here, but if you pay £400, and I guess I could get a train. And I think effectively, we are hospitality. We are led, we're emotional beings. We are led by amazing guest experience, which is very much supported by amazing people experience. Tech needs to support that. And also our partners need to understand that's where we play.
That's the key word, isn't it? The partnership. And I think I always talk about the veg guy, right? Back in the day when I was a GM or whatever I was doing, the veg guy was one of the best relationships we had, right? He was at the back door every day at 6 a.m. dropping off his fruit and veg. Lovely guy, knew everyone and he was connected. He never charged me for an extra tray of tomatoes or an extra, he just knew that our business was valuable to him, and vice versa to us. We looked after him. And I do wonder, in supplier world, because of the heavy VC presence now in tech, or always in tech, that actually drives sometimes the wrong behavior, especially in this industry, because this industry requires emotive people who actually give a shit about what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve. And I do think you can go on that journey. I don't think this isn't about a non-commercial relationship. You're already paying these guys, right? So it's about how much they value you as a partner, and then on the flip side, how much does Gemma value them as a partner, and then ends up working with Gemma's friends. And I think it's quite a simple equation, but I understand why it's not happening.
Well, and I think all hospitality businesses are so different. Our businesses are completely different to Pizza Pilgrims, and yet we chat to the Pilgrims guys all the time. What do you do? Who are you working with? What are you working on? Here's what we're doing. There is a lot of sharing across sort of senior levels in hospitality, particularly around spaces that we're not comfortable and confident, tech being one. This is not my kind of sweet spot. We don't have a head of IT in our business. Frankly, we're 14 restaurants, and we feel, through our commercial function and some pretty just switched on people, as well as linking in with, the industry, we can navigate our way. Is that right? I don't know. But in terms of where we stand, it's very much, we want to explain to you what our needs are from your tech. Now, you might not be able to meet 100%. You might be able to meet 85, and let's get to 90, and then let's look ahead to that extra 10%, which might be that sort of integration or a sweet spot that we want to be able to get some more kind of support on, etc.
Yeah, and are you a tech company or a hospitality company? And that's what I heard. We were having a chat with someone who works in a much larger business the other day, and he was saying he's a head of IT, and he's saying we're building all our own technology out, we're doing it all. And I was like, wow, you can have your own dev team, your own, and I was just thinking, when does it come to the point where you go too far across the line and you actually forget why you're here in the first place, right?
Yeah.
You're Wahaca's great, sustainable, food-based business with great experience, and it's like, at what point does that come at risk when you start becoming, obsessed with this tech side where you're right, farm it out. We're doing a workshop with Nightcap about their employee journey in a few weeks, where we're just kind of looking, no tech conversation at all, just talking about what happens when someone gets hired and what happens when they leave, and what happens all the way in between, and then how do you bring them back, and just forget the tech from it, just look at that, and to do that for 3 hours, just away from what you normally do, is so powerful, right? And I think sometimes we forget that, or the tech side of the business forgets that that's the most important part.
Yeah, and I think also just asking really open questions. My mum's a GP, so she will have someone come into her and she says, how can I help you today? Even though she knows that Mary's got diabetes, and that's likely why she's here. Because actually, if you start an open conversation, you will often find that there is something else going on over here, which Mary might not even have thought about.
Or probably didn't want to share.
And so we've started this journey with Toast, which is very much, based on their POS system and handhelds. And we are continuing that journey because our single biggest kind of tech need, if you like, or operational challenge is around the timing of our food.
Yeah.
So we're not
unique, right?
Yeah, we're not an entree and mains sort of business, and there is nothing more excruciating than sitting in a restaurant, and I sit in them all the time, quite annoyingly for the person that I'm having a meeting with, and I see a group of 6 people and someone's got a chicken burrito and that chicken has just been cooked fresh on the flat top, and I know it takes 7 minutes just to put the chicken, to cook the chicken fresh, let alone make it into
you're a right laugh going up and
Oh, I'm so annoying. And then someone's got, a pork per bill taco that takes 2 minutes, and it's a disjointed moment.
And that's quite a journey, right, for the POS company, because
it's completely
they're not a regular, you're not a regular customer, right? Like I'll start a mains away, done. Yeah. It's just, and Wahaca is famous. I went there with some friends of the day in Paddington. Very good. I love the GM. I know I got his name wrong. I'm not even going to attempt to get it right. Rafa. It's Rafa, not Raphael. There's 2.
Yeah, there's 2.
No one cares about this.
Rafa de Lima.
I basically did a LinkedIn post, tagged the wrong Rafa. I'm an idiot. But I was in there the other day, and the pace is super important to you guys, right? And I don't even mean pace, I mean rhythm.
Yeah.
There's like a rhythm, a hop, like almost like a drum beat in Wahaca that you can see moving across the pass. I know it's a bit sad, but because, you sit and look. And you see that rhythm kind of bouncing. And I imagine if you work there regularly, you would see that drum beat drop out. If it drops out, you would know it very quickly.
Yes, and I think when you look at individual tables, because you could have a sort of a main, or you and I could be sharing a main and a whole lot of sides. So how do we communicate through our POS and through our handhelds to bring that to life for every different combination, let alone there are children at the table and you want to get their food out first, let alone the fact obviously you want to have drinks before any of your food comes. So it becomes layers upon layers. Now we're completely different, and Toast is new into the UK as well. I mean, not new. It's probably 2 years or so. I'm sure someone will.
No, but it's in the States.
We're in the States different, but I think we're kind of pushing them around. Okay, how can we see things differently on the pass, for example? So I will absolutely have someone rotated on every lunch, as long as they can see exactly, the timings of that food and be able to sort of KPI almost. How long did it take from the first and last main dish on that table as a proxy for, was that a kind of appropriate way to serve that table? And when, I'm slightly obsessive about, data and being in the detail.
Kind of your job, but
and that accounting background that only you and I know about. And so, I look for these pain points from a guest experience. And I think more now than ever, guests are so discerning about where they go and where they spend their money. And we have this, interesting spot in casual dining where, we're trying to move towards a more elevated feel, which is actually just in line with the quality of our food.
Yep.
But you have to get every detail right because, there's lots of other places that people can go.
Yep.
So, honing in on this absolute pain point, if I could resolve that, many of the
and I think it's for too many years, I think skillful operators shortcut those pain points. So like what I've loved about hospitality over the years is that no matter what the problem is, whether it's a tech problem or an operational blockage, operators find a way. Now that's not always the right thing to do, but they find a way to navigate. You don't want to navigate allergens, you don't want to navigate food poisoning cases, but you find people can do that and they can kind of go, they find a way around it. So I think it's now getting the ability for tech to be that kind of crutch for those instances and help these guys do their job, because it's been too long going on. I was talking to a large American chain in the UK who have the oldest POS. I mean, literally, it's very boring. Micros 3700, which is what you would have used in 1996. Such a geek. But they still have it across 50 sites. It's crazy. And that is blocking everything they want to do. They're a wonderful company, but they can't get the experience right because it's blocking them. So, yeah, I think that unpicking of those pain points and being super analytical of what is there is... Well, it's absolutely crucial, but I imagine it's not just it's not a week's job, right?
No, and actually, the move to Toast was around being able to get into the detail of this sort of operational challenge. And, to Toast credit, they're very much like, okay, we'll keep working with you. We don't have a solution now, but we'd love to in the future help you get to a point where not just tech, it needs to be tech and team working together, because, it's a dynamic old environment that we work in, and there's no hard and fast rule that works 100% of the time.
No, there is no rule for it.
But also you can drown in data and drown in analytics, but actually being able to give some just great cues, whether it be on the line, on the pass, or indeed on the handheld, to make sure we can drive that smoothness of food coming onto the table. It started with that, and it will keep going. Hopefully in 12 months' time, I can come back on and say, it's amazing.
If you come on and do that voice at the start, you can come on every week. So that's fine. And interestingly, I mentioned sustainable before. You're one of those businesses that has you talk about obsession. I mean, Wahaca have not budged from their passion behind sustainability and doing the right thing. And I remember this is not so much about sustainability, but more about spoons. This bit very quickly. Sure. You used to have the spoon. Do you still do the spoon?
We still do the spoons just for children. But for you, Chris, I'm sure we can make an exception.
No, a few years ago you did a spoon amnesty. Were you there for that?
It was probably just as I started.
It was the funniest thing because I know Clive Watkins quite well, who's now at Pizza Pilgrims, as you mentioned, and. Clive, I remember him going through the spoon amnesty, which I thought was very odd. And then I realised, but then we went to eat there and we were like, get it. People, of course they nick them. Yeah. These are great for kids, for feeding them. So no, that was super interesting. It's nothing to do with sustainability, but it just reminded me.
It's sort of innovation.
It is innovation. But where I was going with it, that you guys have obsessed with that and not left the side. And when I worked for Hard Rock a long time ago, Hard Rock were obsessed with their 4 key principles. I won't list them all, but one of them was save the planet.
Yeah.
And I feel like Wahaca are the same in the fact that you guys just won't let that go, almost to the point of distraction from... I mean, it must bump into profitability. It must bump into efficiencies and all that kind of stuff. How do you balance the two? Because it's super interesting. And how do you keep the team with you as well? Because, they have to care too, right?
No, absolutely.
Don't have to care. You'd like them to care.
Well, and I think it comes back to that point of pride.
Yeah.
So I think if I sort of unpack this, this obsession with having a commercial business but also balancing sustainability or treading lightly on the planet was exactly what Tommy and Mark set out to achieve 18 years ago. They're both very active in the business still. We also have a head of sustainability, Carolyn, who we made her head of sustainability a couple of years ago, but she's been in the business probably about 14 years. And so we have this real strength of conviction that comes through them, but absolutely flood through the rest of the business. And I think we have 5 key values, and pride is one of those. And pride is what we're constantly focusing on driving through our team. And I think it's very much linked to not just sustainability, but actually the provenance of our food and the freshness of our food. And many people who come into our business are shocked by the amount of fresh food that is everywhere. 200 ingredients cooked.
Mostly the chefs, probably.
Every single day.
Yeah.
Some chefs come in to our business saying, I got sick of heating something up in another restaurant group and I want to touch food again and prepare and taste, etc.
I mean, oh my God, yes.
Yes. It's pretty obvious.
No, but I know, but I also understand there's a need for, the other businesses, but remember Colucci was the same. There was fresh food every day when it was great. Every day fresh food, and it was it's what made us cool, right? Because we loved food.
But I think we also celebrate it every day.
Yeah.
So we have a moment, we have a shift brief. Chefs present dishes every single day, and they're talking about the batches, and everyone is encouraged to taste the food. What is in that halloumi taco that makes it really delicious? What's in that pineapple salsa? What is this new habanero that we're bringing onto the ancho chicken taco? Why do we care about that? And one of the really interesting parts about Wahaca is there's so many stories. Sustainability is one. Provenance of food, Mexico, Tomasina, fun, vibe, environment. Yeah, and I think sometimes we struggle to get our point across. When do you use Wahaca? What does Wahaca sort of mean? Nobody walks down the road saying, oh, I feel like a sustainably sourced lunch.
If they do, I'd like to meet them.
Yeah, exactly. Please come on down.
It's the ICP we were looking for.
Exactly. But people want delicious. They want delicious. They want fresh. And fresh is a proxy for healthy and good food. And I think if we can provide that, then, as well as great, friendly, accessible service and sustainability, that's a really fantastic package. But I think to be sustainable and commercial, you have to be really tenacious and slightly dogged, but also think outside the box. So, we work with Biopack on, we have Bagasse, which is a domestically compostable product that we brought in when we started doing a lot more Deliveroo at home during COVID. And there were sort of three components of the packaging. There was a base, there was the little taco, because we wanted our tacos to arrive, hopefully, as hot and fresh as possible, not always as easy. And then a lid. And we just realized there was so much packaging, even though we knew that people could literally put it in the ground outside. We didn't like the consumer perception around so much packaging. And also it was costing us a lot. So we worked with Biopack to actually combine the base and the taco wave.
Again, true partnership in effect, right?
Exactly.
We've got this issue. You've got the solution, we think. Help us get there.
Yeah, and we were like, okay, we'll invest. From an R&D perspective, we bought a mold, they made it, we tweaked, blah, blah, blah. And we were like, we're comfortable for you to sell that elsewhere after a certain point. But we were able to reduce our packaging by half just by doing that. So, commercially you're winning, obviously, but you still got that great sustainability angle. And then Regen Beef, I talked about it on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago, which was really, Regen Beef is about delicious. It's cows that are reared regeneratively. So thinking about their impact on the planet, thinking about how they're fed, soil health in particular. The meat is delicious, first and foremost. Secondarily, the way that we're working with the ethical butcher to actually look at the cuts of meat, which means we don't take prime cuts, because frankly, for a slow cooked beef batch, you don't need prime cuts. So, we're using top side, we're using shin, but it actually means that we can use cuts that other, maybe steak restaurants don't want. Similarly, chicken, we buy chicken thighs because we think it's juicy and in a taco context actually preferable, whereas a lot of people have breast. So we try and also think about sort of carcass utilization from a meat perspective to make sure that we can hit our welfare. We're free range on chicken, regenerative on beef, free range on outdoor reared pork, thinking about how we can work with butchers and also other users of meat to be able to balance that carcass and therefore reduce the price.
And is the user, the customer, do you think they're not appreciative, but do you think they're now looking, do you feel, I mean, you guys probably have more insight than obviously I will, but that people are looking for that or are conscious of that, I suppose, when they're dining out now?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think it's hard. I think, as I said, I don't think many people...
You can't measure it, I suppose.
I think it's probably more a halo effect.
Yeah.
We have carbon labeling on our menu, high, medium, low. We're not saying just eat low carbon. We're just saying here's some information, and you can choose what you like. Similarly, 50% of our menu is vegetarian.
Yeah.
That's not because we have some sort of internal KPI. Actually, it's just amazing vegetarian dishes out there.
Good food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the daughter of a cattle farmer. I'm constantly eating our veg. I had a halloumi taco for lunch and a chicken taco, I must say. But it's delicious. The pineapple salsa is vibrant on a beautiful day. It's exactly what I want to be eating. So I think it's providing choice information, not too much information, so you're feeling really overwhelmed.
Yeah, because that risk of, I worked at Prime Minister, my last job, and they're obsessed with the same things in their own pie-like way.
Pie way.
Yeah, but the same thing, you've got to be very careful you don't force things down people's throats.
100%.
Sounds horrific, but
no.
Force it down their throats, right?
We're not here to preach at people.
Yeah.
It's everyone make their own choices. We're here to provide delicious food. We're a restaurant.
Love that.
You know, as a sidebar to that, there's information available. If you're not interested, that's fine. Our number one selling taco is the regen beef taco, and it's because it's freaking delicious.
Yeah,
it's so good. Gringa cheese, regen beef.
I think that's one thing that people always forget sometimes, that people buy dishes repeatedly because they're good.
Yeah.
It's like visiting a brand that you like in clothes or whatever it might be. It's just because you like it. Yeah, it feels good.
We've got a dish called the sweet potato taquito, the SPT. And it's probably, it's definitely in our top 5, but it's one of our hero dishes. If you look at it, it's not that pretty. If you try and explain it, you're very confused, but you taste it and it's
like you're describing me.
Delicious.
Sorry, I ruined your description of the dish.
People want delicious. The rest of it, they can live with. They can have cheat days. They can have their healthy days.
100%.
As long as it's delicious and wrapped in great service, then actually that's what people want.
Antonio Carluccio used to come into the restaurant while he was still involved, and he used to say, we used to have a pasta fagioli soup, and we were taking it off the menu because we thought, who wants are we really going to, in Cardiff, are we going to give this soup that no one's going to eat? And I remember him saying to me, they don't forget it's a soup. It's delicious. And maximum flavour, minimum of fuss, something like that was his phrase. And it was so true, right? The people bought it because they loved it. They loved the taste, and we were trying to take it off the menu anyway. Silly people we were. And when you're doing all this, you've got to get your team to jump on board, right? And I see you sending them off to the How do they get to Mexico?
Okay.
I just want to know, just in case there's a job
Chris,
going.
We have a few jobs going. 2 years in the business gets you a
Christ's sake, that's
to
ages.
Mexico.
Okay.
Yeah. And this really came about, thinking around Brexit time.
Yeah.
Where we were struggling to retain team, but also we were coming off such a tricky period of COVID. We closed restaurants during the time, and there was this just sense of uncertainty. And so we wanted to pin back down in the values of the business. Pride, as I said, being a key one, but also for people to feel like when they come into Wahaca, they're crossing a threshold into Wahaca with an OAXACA. And there's no way that you can train someone in a London or Cardiff or Brighton or Edinburgh way that makes them emotionally connected to Mexico, Mexican food, or indeed our business than it is to send them over to Mexico.
So cool.
So it is amazing. And
do you have to go as well and look after him?
I have been quite a few times in the last 2 years. And
I'll go.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy days. And so, we try and keep it as sort of as broad ranging as possible. We don't tell them they have to go to any one or two places. We do ask them to put together a couple of photos and sort of little presentation, if you like, around what did they love, what would they surprise them, what was their favorite salsa, taco, etc. And we've also found that teams go together, which is really lovely as well, because it does really build this kind of sense of camaraderie.
And how cool, right, for a customer?
Oh, 100%.
So just swing it in the chat, just what do you want to order? Oh yeah, by the way, I was there last week.
That's the dream.
Yeah.
Because if our teams are proud, then they are telling the stories of Mexico, or they're telling the stories of the food or Wahaca in a way that's so engaging.
It's just insane. I mean, I'd be like, tell me more.
Yeah, well, I was in Brighton before Christmas, and we had a tamal on the menu, and spoke to a couple and just explained to them, what a tamal was and the origination of the dish, which Tommy had worked on, and they were just amazed. They were following people on Instagram as I was chatting to them. That is value add in a way that actually has nothing to do with food and drink.
It's just magic at the table.
It's escaping the UK and moving over to Mexico in a way that you can taste, but you can also hear the stories of. And that's why pride is really important to us.
I think pride is one of those things that, if I look back on my career, is the one thing that kept me in a brand.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. It's the one I used to tell my friends, I work there.
Yes.
And it's not just that, but and the quality. I think quality is so important in these businesses, because if you can't, how proud are you really if you're not happy with the quality? Or
exactly.
would you invite your mum there, and not
exactly.
be a little bit embarrassed? So and I think that's key. And when you're rolling out technology or menus or whatever you're doing, how do you drive adoption on the floor then? Because obviously you've got this commitment that's coming in from people who are getting, not just who are going to Mexico, but the commitment from the chefs who are now with fresh food.
Yes.
You've got the stories behind it. How do you kind of keep that adoption, I suppose, at a high level? Because it's engagement, I think, is probably one of the toughest things for people to do in these brands, because you have to work with people who do 1 shift, 5 shifts, whatever it might be. How do you guys kind of manage that?
It's really hard. I mean, to get anyone, to get 550 people to all know what's 3 key things to tell you about our new aguachile or our beautiful new sunshine bowls. It's very hard. So it takes ongoing kind of tenacity. There's this slightly, I would call the boring stuff, which is here's a module where you can learn about the stories and, go through and do some questions at the end. Shift briefs. We give them as much information.
You 2 a day of them, do you?
Yeah. So we do pre-lunch and then pre-dinner. We also have videos from Tommy that we put onto our workplace. So her talking to the business around, particularly origination. She's just come back from Mexico City. She was there for 6 months last year.
Wow.
Yeah, which is amazing. She's got so much to give in terms of just this energy and this. She's fallen back.
She must want to kind of do more, I suppose.
I mean,
you guys have to
she's
stop
slightly
her.
Unstoppable.
Yes,
she's messaging me constantly, which is fantastic because she's a powerhouse and she cares deeply. And actually, it's really interesting because she kind of sits in a world halfway between casual dining, which is obviously our business and her business, but then also just like a very chefy, foodie world.
It's unique, isn't it? That relationship,
unique.
Because she has that creativity piece that sits within her because she's an artist, right? She's a chef.
Yeah.
And then to have to put it into a branded concept where you're not imprisoned, but you are a little bit, because you've got to have consistency, right? And you've got to do it seasonally or whatever you do.
Yeah.
So that must be must have been quite a challenge for her. I'm sure now it's probably...
And I think, when she came back from Mexico, I was like, right, here's my vision for the business. Because when I went to Wahaca with an O, I went 2 years ago and I went last year, and the restaurants of Mexico, or Wahaca, I should say, just really struck me in terms of their quality, but also this simple approach to food, but this beautiful environment that you sat in, very kind of earthy, using textures and colors in a way that just weren't overwhelming, but actually just worked, and this real respect for the food. And when I came back, I said to Mark Selby, other co-founder, I loved the markets of Mexico, but the restaurants of Mexico and the restaurants of Wahaca just blew my mind. And actually, I think there's such an opportunity to bring that feeling to the UK, particularly coming up to our 18th year. So going into Paddington, that's exactly what
You had that display on the stairs for Day of the Dead.
Yes.
We walked in there and my kid was like, literally blew his mind. He's like, let's eat here. And I was like, okay. So we went upstairs. But I think there's a show with Ewan McGregor and he rides his motorbike around the world. It's called Long Way. He's got 3 series: Long Way Up. This makes sense. Long Way Down and Long Way Up, or Long Way Round. And Long Way Down or Up, I can't remember which one it was. They go from Argentina all the way up. And in Mexico, it is. There's something about the feeling of it. There's something about, it's more than just, as you said, it's more than just the markets, the ingredients, the food. There's something about that experience which I think is, if you get it right over here, is super, that escapism part. And I know people think, oh yeah, it's a restaurant. It is, but you can escape. You mentioned it before. There's that couple talking to you about, because you don't know how many holidays you've inspired over the years, right? From doing what you guys do well. The people going, let's go there.
Yeah,
let's go
and
try
I think
it.
Mexico is such an interesting place, and it's on the radar.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more Mexican food in the UK, and a lot better quality than there sort of ever has been. And so we celebrate all of that because we want people to be interested. And it's such a wonderful culture in terms of the color, the food, the tequila, the mezcal, the dancing, the beautiful handcrafted pottery, weavings, etc. So there's just so many layers. We try and celebrate that in the restaurants, but I think more and more in the next 2 years, as we bring through what we call Wahaca Reimagined, which is almost us sort of growing up a little bit in terms of referencing the restaurants of Wahaca as well as the markets of Wahaca, and really focusing on this primacy around our food.
God, I'm starving.
I should have brought you tacos.
Yes, you should have.
You brought me a Tim Tam.
We've got beer, it's fine. And I don't want to be too negative because I hate it's April the 1st. And as much as it being April Fool's Day, it also means that some costs have gone up.
Yes.
And how is that for you guys? Because I think I know the answer is it's difficult. How are you navigating your way through? It's very early days, obviously. I'm sure lots of planning has gone in. But when you look down the road of this, how ugly does it look? Or do you think like it's something you guys are going to be able to navigate your way through?
Yeah, I think we've navigated so much utter.
I was going to say, it's nothing.
I just feel like you just keep going one foot after the other, and with all the energy shocks that happened 2 years ago, with everything going nuts. I mean, that put huge pressure on our bottom line. Our energy costs sort of
I think people have forgotten about it.
It was a proper energy crisis.
Yeah.
We now trade our energy. We are now energy traders. We're in the business of tacos trading energy, which is sort of wild. But actually, it's a good thing as well, because it really focuses us. Okay, cool. Going through that time, our strategy was commercial without compromise. We will never compromise our team. We will never compromise our guests, our food, never. So where can you make changes? And I think for us, we're constantly in the detail of our business and understanding where is the opportunity. But we bear it on the chin, and we keep on moving forward. And we keep focusing on the primacy around a brand that we're super proud of. And we hope that people will support us for all the things that make us different, and all the things that make us, great in terms of the vibrant food and energy and otherwise.
And they say never waste a crisis, right?
No, exactly.
I think resilience, that's why the people who work in hospitality have come from it. A lot of my friends who have grown up within the industry go on to do amazing businesses because they're so bloody resilient.
Yeah, and I think there's also a sense of pride from our team that we've built up, and a real commitment on fun. We want to have fun at work, but we want to deliver really well. And this sense of we all rise together actually means our LTO is the lowest it's probably ever been. For the last 12 weeks, it's been at 30%. We have, thank you. So, but what that means is you're saving on training costs.
It's a ripple effect, isn't it, throughout the business?
Exactly. And you're driving a better experience. So you're getting sort of people in the door more, and you're, reducing your discounts. And so there is, constantly investing in people really does improve the rest of the operation. That being said, it's an absolute freaking huge a hole
another
that
one
has appeared.
Another one.
It's another
one. And I think and the customers don't stop coming, right? So they're still coming, but I think they're changing. The pandemic, as we've mentioned a few times, changed. My mum and dad can use digital banking, Amazon, all that kind of stuff that they could never do before. My mum emailed me today and said, I'm sending you a gift card. I'm doing it via email. How cool am I? I was like, well done.
Well done, Sue.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well done, Sue. How are those expectations changing? You guys, we talked about it a bit, and the fact that you're trying to kind of alleviate those pain points within the order process. But what are their expectations of you guys, do you think, or what's changing?
I think that definitely people are coming out more for occasions. So early week, you're just seeing a shift into a much bigger sort of Thursday night in particular, Friday, Saturday, Sunday's okay. Whereas early week, it's much quieter than it ever was, particularly in a sort of more
in the regions,
suburban context. So how do you maintain relevance there? How do you kind of drive engagement there? In terms of what guests want, I think there was a time when Wahaca was something very new, and the chaos of food coming whenever it felt like it was sort of endearing and fun. Everyone has moved past that. So I think what people want is a sense of genuine hospitality. And we did a whole session last year, being able to look at a guest in the eye and say, Chris, I'm looking after you for the next 45 minutes. We're going to have a great time. We're going to give you great food. I'm going to tell you a couple of things along the way around Mexico. Let's get you some drinks and let's have some fun. That sense of connection, that sense of hospitality, which is actually very emotional, is exactly what people want when they come into a restaurant, because that's I value you, and I'm going to give you a great experience, and we're going to have some fun along the way.
And we devalued that over the pandemic, right? We had
transactional or functional is just not in people's language anymore. And I think also moments of surprise and delight. So I think that we want our teams to have fun. So we have a couple of little mechanisms. Ask to roll the lime when you come in.
Well, Rafa, I'm coming.
Rafa. Ask to roll the lime. It's these moments where people are like, oh, okay, I'm going to ask. And then, there's a bit of a game that comes out, and it's all really fun. Using dessert on me, try it on me. Oh, I'm not sure about that hummus. Try it on me. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's just like, actually, as a business, it costs us barely anything. People remember experiences long after they've forgotten their pork pibil tacos or their taquito or, their drinks. And therefore investing in those relationships with our guests has to be the way forward.
Mary Angela said it's not what you do, it's the way you make people feel.
Yeah.
And I think that nobody returns for a transaction.
No.
McDonald's, you might, not even McDonald's. I think McDonald's, you actually want your burger to be like it was yesterday, or whatever it was. Not that I go every day. FYI. My kid might, occasionally.
Sue.
Sue's given up caring. It's long gone. She don't care anymore. But it's true, isn't it? That transactional basis where we had to behave like that over the pandemic. But still, you guys and some of the other brands that I really admire actually got around that in a really digital, must have been a bloody awkward way in terms of packaging, in terms of having fun through the consumer. So, I think...
And just to say, I think you can have tech and a great connected hospitality moment working in sync. So for us, we've made a choice around, we wouldn't have order on phone, but we have pay at table. And, you know, to finish the meal is, Chris, has been great. Can I bring you your bill? Or you can pay at table. Oh, actually, great. I can pay at table and I can split my bill as well. Oh my gosh, that's so easy. That's amazing.
The Hendu in Cardiff will be very happy.
Oh, the Hendu. And will our servants not having to do 20
I'll just go and get a calculator.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, those are moments. And then obviously a wonderful thank you very much and farewell. They still work really well together. And that's where I kind of see those two kind of tech and
everybody hates waiting to order, waiting to pay.
It's the pain point.
Yeah, and it's
addressing the pain point.
I was with Gavin in Pizza Pilgrims. We were talking. We were watching a table next to us, and we were discussing pay at table. And I was saying to him, just watch now. They were a family of 4. They'd finished. Yeah. It was rammed. It's Keenly Court. It's always rammed. And the waitress was running around doing her bit. And I said, you probably lost 5 minutes. And the reality is they could have paid, be gone, flip the table, and gone again. And I think there is a real place for it, I think now, but I think Tom James said it's about choice.
Yes, exactly.
Giving them the ability to pick what they want to do during the meal, at the end of the meal. Ordering at the table, I'm still 50-50 on. I'm like, because I just don't know how that's controlled by the...
Particularly for us, because we want to tell the story of our food. And people open our menu and go, oh my gosh, I just don't know where to start. Okay, let me take you on this journey.
When you do... Well, I don't know if it's just panic, but when I do that, there is a chap standing next to me or a lady standing next to me within a second saying to me, this is what happens here. Because I have that... Do you have the Wahaca the first time face?
The panic.
Yeah. What the hell's going on? But yeah, no, I love it. And I'm going to give you... I've got to give you a magic wand here, one of my questions.
Oh, okay.
So I think you'd suit a magic wand.
Oh, thank you.
Do we do a Christmas hospitality pan too? You could be the fairy. If you could wave a magic wand and have one tech solution perfectly designed for Wahaca. Oh, you can have anything you want. What would you do?
Can I have 2?
Yeah, well, it's not real, so yeah.
Okay. Oh, damn it.
I mean, I literally have it under my table here. I can just bring out.
So definitely that piece on, and you know, AI is going to get us there. I completely believe that.
We got through 45 minutes without AI.
If you've got, you know, a clean data set, keep feeding the information, and, you know, absolutely. So, this is around making sure that we can get our guests exactly to the second the food that makes sense for them on their table at any one time, acknowledging that every table is completely different and the way they order is completely different. And, you know, singles, groups, and otherwise. Then the other piece is on bookings. And I think
tell me about bookings.
Yeah, coming off COVID, you know, we used to be like, oh, just show up and it's fine, we'll find you a table. But everyone got a bit over that during COVID. So then we started to bring bookings in. But again, nothing that makes me kind of sadder is going into Covent Garden at 5:30 on a Thursday, and they've got all their bookings booked in at 6, so there's only 30 minutes, so they're not accepting people.
I already know where you're going with this.
Sitting on, you know, half the tables, and you're like, what's freaking going on here? Or a guest comes in and they say, well, I want to sit on that table, and they go, oh no, sorry, that's booked in 25 minutes.
Very quickly, I went to a pub on Mother's Day because we hadn't booked, because I'm a bad man.
That's fine.
And we went in, and I walked in, and I said to the guy, it was empty. Obviously, I could tell, fully booked for tonight, right? And it was 5:30, and I think his first booking, he said, oh, we can't do it. I said, there's 4 of us. I said, I promise, mate, we'll be in and out in an hour. And he's like, I said, I've got 2 young kids, I don't want to be hanging around. And he's like, just can't do it, mate. And the 2 managers looked at me and went, just can't do it. And I looked and went, okay, no problem. Well, I was just thinking, my God, restaurant somewhere in this land is screaming for that money.
Yeah.
Just crazy.
I'm literally at the thought of that. I mean, yes, we can is always the answer.
Yes.
And I mean, ops hate me when I'm around out with guests because I say, oh, have you thought about this drink? Oh, I'm not sure between that one and that one. Oh, let me just get you both.
But the best
God,
hospitality experiences for me are those ones where it's blood and thunder and you're pushing. The pass is out of control. People are running, I don't want to get too, but people are on the floor working hard to flip the next table. Nobody cares waiting in that environment. I do not care watching a busy restaurant looking like I'm going to be in the middle of it in 5 minutes. That's the best feeling ever.
Oh yeah, to walk into a restaurant that is half empty and be told you can't have a table because you've got bookings coming is a killer. So
tech's not solving that. Well, maybe this will.
My piece of tech is, again, using AI. Why do I need to tell my booking system that in Covent Garden on a Thursday night around theatre time, a table of 2 will be in for 75 minutes? It should tell me, on average, in this restaurant, a 2 is going to take 43 minutes. So there should be a continuously evolving
conveyor belt of
It should just be allocating tables as they move around.
Surely that exists.
Please, Chris, share it with me.
I will find it
because I find it too static. I want to be able to take bookings, and I need to be able to take bookings, but they're too rigid. And okay, table 5 is for that group who are 10 minutes late, so I can't put anyone else there. The system should be allocated
because the res platforms must have the detail, right? The data behind that. They know how long the POS will know how long someone sat at the table and paid. So the data is there. So it just needs some clever chap or lady to process that, send it to Gemma quickly.
And I think just integrating some of these groups together, whether that be Toast and Open Table, to be like, right, we want to create something that is completely fluid, and we're going to use AI and all the data from all the Thursday night services we've had in this restaurant, let alone Stratford, and there's a West Ham game on, and what does that look like at 3 p.m. on a Sunday, to optimize the booking in this restaurant.
They do it with hotels and they do it with planes, right, with dynamic pricing. And I remember meeting Patronics, who are a Boston-based CRM company a while ago, and the guy was fantastic who came over to do the pod. But they work with dynamic pricing, and the way they treat their airline passengers absolutely brilliantly. And that's only a step away from what you're talking about. That's only just taking that data and applying it into already functional data. And restaurants are really, really predictable, I think.
I think
if,
so too.
If you understand.
And guests are also very predictable.
Very.
If they're all going to the Lion King at 7:30, they're going to be out
Guess
by
what?
7:15.
And they all think they're clever going, we'll go at 5:30, it'll be fine, it'll be dead.
But we met a hospitality, he's our owner of a big group. They purposely overbook every single service. I find that challenging.
I feel a little bit sick.
I mean, just to have guests waiting there with the expectation that, of course, they've booked and they should be seated. There is a slight...
Based on no-shows or based on that gumption to say we're going to go for it?
No, based on that gumption, and also they can wait.
Wow.
So there's a little arrogance in there.
Yeah, you remember they used to queue them at the Hard Rock on Park Lane. They used to deliberately queue them out the front just to have that. Not everyone... It depends to be a tourist might wait, but a regular, a local won't.
No, absolutely not.
Next door.
And also, it just leaves a very sour taste in your mouth. And you don't have to do a lot to tip someone over an edge to be like, I'm not waiting for you.
What is it that for? It's very hard to win a new customer. It's bloody easy to lose one. Like I've lost loads of my career. I'm really good at it. Give me a shout if anyone needs any help. I can help you. But winning a new one back is so hard because you've got to have the best waiter on the best section to make sure that meal that night, best chef on the pass, all that stuff has to align. All the moons align.
Exactly.
Look, I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to you and could probably do it for another 3 hours.
Thank you, Chris, so much for having me.
No, it's very cool. And I think it's only taken us a year to book it, which I think is a record.
Well, I chose April Fool's as a
when you did it,
moment.
I know. I was thinking when you did it, I was like, is she being funny? But it's after 12 p.m. and apparently there's a rule after 12. My kids told me that you can't tell me jokes.
We haven't launched a fragrance.
Yeah. It's just that's not fair.
Happy April Fools.
But what was it called again? The fragrance? Have you been doing that all day, by the way, to people? The fragrance.
The sexy voice?
Or the sexy voice can stay. I've signed that off.
Management meeting. It launched this morning on Tommy and Wahaca's Instagram.
And how many people bit?
Oh, there's been quite a few.
Had some orders?
Quite a bit of interest. Definitely get on there. She's very funny. She's very good.
Oh,
well done,
God.
Thomas.
I can't wait. I'll order some later. I need some new stuff. Look, if people want to reach out to you, if they are allowed, and find out more about Wahaca's journey, because I do think it's really, really rare that you find these brands that hang around. And I don't mean hang around in a bad smell way, but that have managed to go through, because there's a lot of other stuff Wahaca went through earlier in 2010 kind of thing, but and still deliver the quality they're delivering and still kind of evolving. Can people reach out and have a little chat to you? Where's the safest place to find you?
I have a lovely email address called hola@Wahaca.
Oh, do you?
It's on
Is
our
that your
website.
pseudonym?
That is my pseudonym, Queen of Tacos, or just hello. And if you just address it to me, then it will get sent my way.
Very cool. Look, lovely. Thanks very much. What's your plans for tonight?
Home with my girls tonight.
I didn't ask how many girls have you got? Two.
5.
Oh, yeah, we said 4 is enough.
5.5 and 3.5.
Yes.
So they've been
God.
busy coming up with April Fool's jokes all morning. So we'll see.
I look forward to see what you're going home to then.
Indeed.
Right. Thank you very much. That was Gemma Glasson, everyone, the Queen of Tacos. We'll see you all next week. Thanks, Gemma.